At the T-minus 3-minute mark, tape recorders on board the spacecraft were turned on. These recorders record both voice and data. We have ignition sequence start. The engine's now building up to 7.7 million pounds of thrust. We have a launch commit and we have a liftoff. Moving back. The Saturn V lifting off with power.
This is Rocket Shop Radio Hour on 105.9 FM WOMMLP Burlington, Vermont. I'm your guest host, Gianna Seaver, filling in tonight for Tom Proctor. With me tonight, I have Mr. Wilcox. Hello.
Hi.
Do you want to get us started with your first song for our listeners?
Sure, why not?
Great. Ooh, wow. I really liked that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm really curious about your process because most artists who come in bring a bunch of instruments and you're playing that for us, just so listeners know, from a PC. So I'm just wondering, can you describe what that's like and your process?
Well, I mean, I'll start out with, I'll just have a particular feeling that I want a track to have, or I'll just have a very simple bit of a rhythmic or a melodic idea. It's sort of like when you've heard a song once and you don't really remember how it went, but you remember how it felt, and you might remember a little bit of how it went. It's sort of like that, only I'm remembering something that's never existed. I'm trying to reconstruct, or rather construct it on that basis, essentially. I mean, I've never had a band really. I've played guitar before, but I've always sort of worked just piecing stuff together on my own, generally on a computer, or, back in the old days on a 4-track tape recorder. And so I've just always thought in terms of I'll just hear sounds in my head and I'll just, through trial and error, I'll just build it up until I get something that I'm satisfied with.
That's really cool.
Now that's, I'm sorry.
Oh no, go right ahead.
Anyway, well, that particular song I should mention, it does have most of the stuff I do is either sampled or just played on a keyboard or a drum machine. That one actually has a live violin solo because I came up with the beat a while ago. I mean, a year or so ago, but I just felt it needed something else. And in my head, I thought this would be great with a violin solo. And I tried talking to a few people around town. Nothing quite came together, and eventually I went online onto a a gig sharing website. And interestingly enough, I found a guy in Bulgaria of all places who gave me exactly what I wanted. I sent him the track, told him the basic feeling that I wanted. He improvised several solos, and I wound up cutting two of them together in order to create the final version.
Wow. That's really cool.
Thank you.
I like the way it sounds. I feel like I could really concentrate and I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of feel
kind
like
of dreamy.
yeah, I feel like that song, I feel like that's about as close as I've ever come to really creating something where I feel like I got exactly the feeling that I was looking for, which was I had this image in my head of sort of like being indoors with other people in the dead of winter, and being surrounded by that sort of warmth of just enjoying being around other people where it's freezing outside. That sort of warmth that is warmer because by virtue of being surrounded by cold.
Yeah.
Which was the whole thing that I had in mind while I was trying to create that song. Like the title of it is Winter Sangria, when those two words together was sort of trying to the sort of duality that I was going for there.
Cool. That's a cool title. I like that. So I'm wondering where you're from because I'm hearing your accent and
I'm from Virginia.
Oh, okay.
I grew up in Norfolk, Virginia.
Cool. And so where do you play your music usually?
Honestly, I haven't played live all that much. Let's see, I'm naturally just a creature of the downside of being someone who pieces stuff together on their own is that I don't think in terms of going out on stage in front of people and being like, here is what I have done.
Yeah.
And I did, however, last December, I played at the Monkey House.
Oh, cool.
Every third Thursday there, they have a night for local hip hop artists. Shout out to Scotty Raymond, DJ Kanga, and Anthill Collective for all putting that on. And I've been going there pretty regularly. And they just, when I told them I had a record coming out, we talked about just getting me on the bill. And so I played everything I'm playing tonight. I played there and a few other songs, mostly off of my new album. Well, new. It was out in December, but that's still new.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that's the only time I've played live recently. I really need to do it more probably. So one of my goals going forward is to do that some more.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think people would really like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How do you feel like people have responded?
So far, I mean, I've been feeling pretty encouraged. I've had a lot of people say they like it. I mean, it hasn't really. I mean, not many people outside of my existing circle of friends and associates have heard it, but I mean, they've liked it, so that's certainly something.
Yeah, for sure. Do you want to play us something else?
Sure. This track is actually a medley of 3 songs off of my album. My album, I should say, the title is More Shells. It's available on Bandcamp. It's all instrumental stuff. Although though a couple songs do have vocals sampled from other tracks. Yeah, but this is a medley of 3 different songs off of that album. You'll probably be able to tell when it changes because they all sound pretty different. Actually, all my songs sound pretty different. I'm sort of reinventing the wheel every time I start a new song, just trying to figure out what combination of sounds and instruments will work right.
Okay, let's check it out.
Please wait. Buffering.
Wow, those were all really different.
Yep.
Just like you said.
Yeah, like I say, every song on the album kind of has its own sound. Because, like I say, I'm not working with a specific setup as a foundation. I sort of am assembling a different set of sounds for every song I do based on whatever I hear in my head and whatever I think works with that.
Yeah, you said earlier that you pull from specific memories or feelings when you're creating these. Were there
Mhm.
any with these songs
With
that came up?
those,
Especially the one with the seagull-y sounds.
well,
I'm
it's
curious
interesting.
about.
It has that song has a title that's has a significance in my personal life, even though I didn't come up with the title till after. The title of that track is Keller Beach, which is the name of a very small public beach in the city of Richmond on the San Francisco Bay in California, because I lived there for several years. And, well, let's suffice it to say the California dream never came true. Most of my time there was spent, in just really bad housing situations with, well, I'm not going to go into it, but wasn't good. And eventually, after that happened one too many times, I just decided it's over. I need to leave California, head back east to Vermont. And so, but I was, afraid to do that. And then one evening, I happened to be in Richmond, and I wound up on Keller Beach. And I spent a good 2 hours just pacing up and down the sand and just going over in my head every reason for and against leaving California that I could think of, until finally I'd convinced myself, it will be okay. And so, and as soon as I'd done that, I went and started contacting people to tell them I was coming back east.
Gotcha.
Now, that song, I wasn't really thinking of that while I was creating it, but after it was done, I needed a title, and I thought of Keller Beach and thought, well, that works.
Yeah, very fitting. I feel like there was something really peaceful about the first one, and then the second one was much more upbeat.
Yeah.
Quicker, more positive-ish. What was the title of that?
Of the second one? The title of that is Subutai, and you want to know what that means, right?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Okay, well,
the story behind it.
well, part of me doesn't want to tell people, but you
Oh,
you
then
can
you don't have to.
no, you can very easily Google it, so I might as well. Subutai was one of Genghis Khan's generals,
Oh.
and he won battles from China to Poland and everywhere in between. And the song, again, it's not really about him. I always either come up with a title first or last, never in the middle. And that song, as I was building it, I kept thinking it made me think of horses stampeding across a plain, or warriors on horseback galloping into battle. And I happened to be reading online some about the history of the Mongol Empire. And I just thought, Subutai would be a good name for it, because it suggests that. It suggests warriors on horseback, but without making it obvious this is what you're supposed to think of with this song. Of course, now I've revealed it, so
Yeah, see, I would have never guessed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, very intricate meanings behind these. And what about the third one?
The third one it's called A Broken Thread, which is, the title is just an allusion to what I sampled the piano from. And, any DJ, producer, whatever, will never tells you what songs they sample from, so I won't say that. But that song was originally, that song and Subutai were going to be one song in two parts. But as they developed, they sort of diverged until eventually I made them two separate songs on the album. And of course, here I just put them back together, though.
Gotcha.
Ask me whatever you feel. I'm here to be,
Just thinking.
No problem. Take your time. Well, not too much time. We only have half an hour, but
Very much. Step one here. So, who are some of your musical influences?
influences, well, I'm old enough that, the great alternative rock boom of the 90s was a big influence on me. Bands like, Nirvana and Pearl Jam were big when I was just heading into my, angst-ridden teenage years. So that certainly made sense to me. And, just as I've grown, now that I'm older, I realize how unusual that was to have all the music on the radio being like, life sucks, I hate this. When actually
Yeah.
that's kind of an exception. Normally, the most popular music is upbeat. But anyway, that influenced me some. And as I got older, I got really into things. I got really into hip hop and progressive rock. I mean, most people don't think of those genres as being the same thing, but to me, they're both sort of based more on putting different sounds together to create a sort of sonic dream world almost than just, I have a guitar or a piano and I'm going to play some chords and sing a melody, that sort of thing, which is interesting to me. Like the hip hop artists that really influenced me were all, like 80s people like Eric B. and Rakim, Boogie Down Productions, Marley Marl and the Juice Crew. Just the simplicity of that music and the way they built up such interesting sounds through just a few small elements like a beat and a sample off a record and some rhymes. I mean, I know most of what I do does not sound much like hip hop, but I found that when I was younger, I would try to write songs and I could just never figure out what I wanted to do. But as once I'd say reach my late teens or so, I'd figured out that if I started with the basic framework I think since I'm not really a melodic songwriter in a conventional sense, I think that in some ways the hip hop approach is more suited to me. And also I found that just starting with that basic foundation of a beat and some textures of sound and some rhymes, I could just, expand outward almost infinitely from there and such. Even if, like I say, it doesn't sound much like what people would think. I mean, I think of what I do as sort of being somewhere in that sonic universe. I try not to overanalyze it, though.
So is there a genre that you feel fits, or is it a little bit too outside the box to fit?
I've never quite been able to think of anything. I've generally just, when people have asked, I would say experimental hip hop, because the experimental part at least lets people know that, that they're, it's not going to be quite what they would expect. But even that, I've largely given up trying to name it. I just try and follow the ideas where they lead.
Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, I feel like I may have asked you this earlier, but are there instruments that you play and record?
There's nothing
Are you pulling these from different directions?
There's nothing I personally play on this album. I have an acoustic guitar which I've strummed a little bit. I mean instruments in terms of actual, say, acoustic instruments and stuff like that. Because I mean, I don't want to be snobbish. To me, a computer can be an instrument. Turntables are an instrument. It's all instruments, but I know what you're saying. And I can strum a guitar. I've done that on a couple of, on a couple of my older records, but I didn't do it any on this one.
Yeah, no, I think that what you're doing is really creative.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Something different that I think a lot of people would appreciate. I'm also wondering if you sing.
I don't sing any. I mean,
you mentioned songwriting like earlier, so I was just wondering.
Yeah, I don't want to say that I rap or MC because I don't really. At least, I mean, I can sort of. I sort of recite words in varying degrees of rhythm, but I don't feel like I get all the way to being an MC because with true MCing, the voice and the rhythm locks together and it becomes one thing. Whereas I can never quite get to that point. Whatever I do is always sort of interacting back and forth with the rhythm, but never truly locking into it. So I guess I'm somewhere between spoken word and MCing, maybe.
Yeah. Just another question that I forgot to ask.
Sure.
What brought you to Vermont?
What brings so many other young people to Vermont? College.
Woohoo.
I attended Goddard College in Plainfield.
Oh,
Bob, can I have a glass of water? Yeah, I attended Goddard College in Plainfield quite a few years ago, actually, and I can't say I never left because I've left at least 3 separate times since then. But the same cycle has kept playing out. When I leave Vermont looking for somewhere better, I don't find somewhere better, and I come back to Vermont.
something always brings you back, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've always had a thing for, I like colder weather. I like mountains and trees and all of that. And, and also I've lived here before. I'm relatively familiar with Vermont. So, yeah, I just keep coming back.
Yeah. All right, now is a good time if you want to finish up and play us one more thing before you have to go.
Okay, one more song?
We can do 2.
Oh.
Well, either
We don't
way,
have anyone else coming in second.
Oh, then as many as you would like.
How about
as many as I would.
2 is good.
Okay.
So we can wrap up at some point, I
Okay,
guess.
yeah, I'll play one. This song, next song I'll play is actually one of my vocal songs. The thing is, I've done a number of them, but the trouble is most of them I can't perform because when I moved here from California, I lost the hard drive containing the raw files to all my older songs.
No.
So all I have is the finished version. So I can't go back and mute the vocal and perform over it or anything like that. This song, though, I lucked out. I originally released it as an instrumental on an album I did in 2015 called Shells, hence the title of my new album, More Shells. Really imaginative, I know. And basically, and then later I did a vocal version of it. And so, but the point is I have I have an instrumental version of it, that I can perform over. So I was just going to do that one now, I guess.
Okay, go for it.
In the cold and dull fires of late autumn, I'm walking. I'm talking to myself about that other time, but it's all just self-serving nonsense. The road is cracked beneath my shoes. Once upon a time, there were rivers of laughter always flowing, now completely iced over in the waning twilight. I can smell wood smoke in the air. Just keep the tears away. I don't want to say what I mean to say, but the memory flows. But the memory flows. I search for a trace of welcome, looking in your eyes. In your dark and bulging eyes, I see them in my mind. Just the ghost of happy times, but what is there to say? I see the sky above is gray, and so I lean into the wind. I try to stay close to all the things that happened then, but something about this time of year, I just can't help it. The memory keeps flowing through until we face our fear. We make do with our card, but we each wish we had dealt it. I've been over it so many times, there's no point anymore. I thought this couldn't happen. There was so much that I ignored. We did what we had to do to escape the summer's cages. We ripped out all the pages from the book of what we had. Sometimes I meant to hurt you. Sometimes it made me glad. You're so good at acting innocent, but I'm not any better. Our hearts grew cold inside. We wanted not to care. The trees have been stripped bare. So many times we've lied. Now I'm asking that we leave behind all these childish things. truth is all I offer, and whatever peace it brings. I don't want to validate you, and so I won't apologize. But there are times that I allow myself to see things through your eyes. I'm not happy with what I see then, but it doesn't mean I'll change. And so I can't help thinking that we're better off estranged, though I'm sad to think of all that once awaited you and me. Now all that keeps us warm is whatever's left of memory.
Wow. I really liked that. I like how
Thank you.
you combine your own reflections with the beat.
Mm-hmm.
It works really well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Is there a story behind it that you want to
Not-
share at all?
Not really, no.
Not
It sounds
particularly?
very personal, but it's really not.
No?
I mean, yeah, we've all had fallings out with people that we
Yeah.
once got along with, and maybe some of that leaked into it, but ultimately it was just sort of, I created a beat and started writing what seemed to fit with it, and I just sort of went from there.
With this one and with previous ones, did you record anything out in nature and put it in, or did you find those from other sources, and like with the birds and?
A lot of it is just stuff that I found on YouTube.
Oh.
I mean, you can type almost anything into YouTube, like sound of such, and find it. I have recorded live stuff before, but it's just, I'm trying to think, did I actually record anything live? I don't think I recorded anything live for the new album. It was all just stuff that I found online.
Cool. I would never think to do something like this, and I think that it's just really original.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So before you have to go, are there any social media plugs or anything you want to put out there to listeners?
Well, you can find my new album at my Bandcamp page, which is mrwilcox.bandcamp.com. And I also have a SoundCloud page with, there's not a lot of overlap between the two, because the SoundCloud is often things that I don't consider finished, or just songs I don't have a home for. And I can't recall basically just type in Wilcox in SoundCloud and I should come up. I'm the one in Burlington if there's more than one. And yeah.
Okay, sounds great. And did you want to play us out with another song?
Sure, I'll play. This is the last song on the new album. And let's see. It's based on a piano part that I actually came up with 20 years ago, back when my first semester at Goddard. But until this past summer, I didn't do anything with it. So, ideas develop at their own pace sometimes.
Yeah.
It's called Icebreaker.
Ooh. Mr. Wilcox, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much for having me.
Of course, thank you. It was great, and I really liked it. You have great stuff, and I think a lot of people will enjoy it.
I hope so. Thank you.
This has been Rocket Shop Radio Hour on 105.9 FM WOMMLP Burlington, Vermont. I'm Gianna Seaver, and I filled in for Tom Proctor tonight. Thank you for tuning in. Next week, we'll have Bobby Coe and Sophie Patenode. Have a great night.